Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Let's continue the Spooktober by creating this fully rigged skeleton hand, and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here and you want to learn more, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump right into empty Blender file and let's just select the cube and the camera, press X and choose delete. And we'll start by creating the armature for the hand, because this will really help you, to nail the proportion. You don't need to, worry about how to position the fingers and hand. Everything will be already prepared for you. But first, we need to make sure we have the Rigify add-on active. So let's go Edit, Preferences, and in Blender 4.2, you have the add-on section, which is already, installed and downloaded add-ons. But if you want new ones, you need to go to Get Extensions and download those. So for example, if I search my add-ons, I have the Rigify right here, but you probably won't see it here if you search your add-ons. So go Get Extensions and search the Rigify here. And in my case, it found nothing because I have it already installed, but you should see it here, and you should be able to click Install button right here, and then you will see it in your add-ons and it should be already activated. If it's not, just check the box and close the preferences. And now if you press Shift A and go Armature, you will see the Rigify Meta Rigs and you can choose the human. So now this is the full human armature ready, but we don't need it all actually, because if you go into the data properties and choose Generate Rig, you don't need to do that right now. You will see the Rigify will generate the full rig from your skeleton, but we don't actually need to do that. So let me hit Ctrl Z and let me tap into the edit mode, and let's select everything here except the hand and press X and delete bones. We only need this hand, and if it starts with this bone right here, which is called the upper arm, it will all work just fine and it will generate the rig anyway, even though the rest of the skeleton is missing. So let's now press 1 for a front view. Let's select everything, press G and move it right here. Let's press R to rotate and G again to place it right here. And now we can select these bones, hold Shift, select this one as well, and press G and move it to straighten it out a little bit. Like this. Now select everything, press R, then Z and 90 to rotate this 90 degrees, and we can press G, then X to again move the bottom right here on the origin point, and then select these and press R to rotate. Like this, and now we'll move the hand a little bit and press R again and G to place it somewhere here. If you feel like this is too fast for you or you don't understand some core concepts, make sure to check out my courses. I carefully designed them to take you from beginner skills through low poly illustration all the way to full character illustration, textured environments and much more. And I build the courses as creative projects, each with its own style. And every time there's a new technique or something needs explaining, we stop for a while and you get an in-depth explanation. But in the end, you still get a full project result. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. So now let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad. And we again make some adjustments by pressing G then Y and moving it back slightly, so it's straightened out a little bit more. And now we'll use this as a template for a bone arm. So let's tab out. Now let's press Shift A and we'll add mesh and circle. And we don't need so many vertices, so let's modify this and make it like 6. That should be enough. Now tap into the edit mode and press S and scale this down like this. Press F to fill and E to extrude. And we go right up until, the joint there, like this. And now we'll press Ctrl R to create the loop cut here and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to 2. Left click to confirm and right click to release, and then press S then Z and scale them away like that. And now press Ctrl R again here, create the cut, right click to release, and right here as well. And now we'll alt click this loop and make it larger. And now let's enable X-ray view right here. Let's select all of these, press S then Shift Z to isolate the X and Y axis and make this larger a little bit, and then alt click this loop and scale it up with S like this. And now we can tab out and go to the modifiers, and let's add subdivision surface modifier. and that should give us like a rough, very stylized bone shape. So we can now adjust. So tab into the edit mode. I'll press A to select all and S, and then Shift Z to scale only on X and Y axis, like this. And then maybe press Ctrl R and create 2 more cuts right here. Right click to release and press S, then Shift Z again to scale them inside a little bit, to make it a little bit bent. Okay, let's disable the X-ray view. And I think this will work nicely. Maybe we can make this bottom part even larger, like this. And now let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and we can just press Shift D, then Z, and duplicate this over here. And we can just make it smaller and thinner. So press S, then Z, scale it so it matches the joint there. Then we can press S, then Shift Z again, scale it down like this, and press Ctrl A and apply the scale. So you should have something like this. Now here, this part I will fill with like one piece of bone. It's not realistic, of course, but again, we are creating very stylized, illustrative skeleton hand. So I think this should be enough to fill this with like a one bone piece. So let's press Shift A, let's add a cube. We'll press G, then Z, and move it up. So the origin point is somewhere here. Tab into the edit mode and just scale it down here, like this. And then press Ctrl R, create a loop cut there. And here as well. Drag a selection here, press S to make this smaller. Here, select these vertices, hold Shift, select this one, and make sure you are in the X-ray view like I am, so you can see through and select all the vertices like this. And press G, then Z, and move them back a little bit. Now we can make it thinner, so press A, then S, then Y, and scale it on Y-axis. We can look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad. And adjust this a little bit here. Maybe rotate this part slightly. Tab out, and now let's add that subdivision modifier here as well. And it will make it a little bit smaller. So we can press tab into the edit mode again, press A, and make it larger like this. Now tab out, and let's carry on with the fingers. So I will select this bone right here, press Shift D and move it up here, and press S to scale it down. Of course, we'll need to make it a little bit thicker here, so press S, then Shift Z to make it wider, and then we can press R to rotate. And while still in the X-ray mode, we can start rotating this bone from multiple angles until we match the finger bone right there. And now let's press 1 for a front view, press Shift D and move it right here. Again, we're trying to match the joints, and now press R to rotate. And again, we can press S to make this smaller, and again, rotate from multiple angles until it matches like this. Now I will Shift D again and repeat the process basically. Okay, this is quite okay. Maybe this part will need to be a little bit wider here. So let's go to the front view, then tab in, and we can just move these vertices to the side a little bit so it touches the hand there, and maybe here as well. So we get a little bit more coverage there for the bones, like this. And now let's continue with the next row, and easiest thing will be to just select the bone. So select the armature, tab into the edit mode. You can select this joint and hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now tab out, select the bone, press Shift D, right click to release, and hold Shift S and snap selection to cursor. And I know this looks a little bit tedious, but if you do it a few times over, it will get really easy and you will be able to do it much faster. So let's press S to scale this down like this, but not too much. And then we can press S, then Z twice to scale locally on Z axis and then match the rotation, but it will need to be a little bit longer. So press R and rotate it in place like this. And again, I'm looking at least from 3 angles to match this, and then press S, then Z twice again to match the length. And now I'll just select this joint again And you can do it really quickly when you hold Shift S and just move your mouse down and release. It will, you know, switch between the modes. So you can just hold Shift S and just slide and it snaps. So really just like this. And now it becomes really easy to duplicate and then snap it here. That's the other way around. It's, you know, towards the top of the pie menu. And now press S, again, scale it down. We can rotate. Maybe make it a little bit wider. If you want to make it wider on X and Y axis locally, then press S, then Shift Z and Shift Z again, and you will just scale it locally on X and Y. And let's press S, then Z twice to scale locally on Z axis and do something like this. And now again, I will just replicate the process until I have the full finger row. Okay, and now let's move on. And again, same thing over. I will Shift D, right click to release, Shift S and selection to cursor, make it smaller until it matches at the joint. And then I will modify the rotation and press S then Z twice to adjust the scale. And here, repeat the process again. And before we move on and do these small ones here, let's do the thumb. So I will just select this. First, let me move the cursor, and then duplicate this over. Here I need to adjust this bone right here as well. So maybe we can just move it a little bit lower, then scale it up. And then we can adjust this by moving these vertices closer to the thumb there. And we can increase the levels in the viewport here. And I think this will work nicely. Maybe this is too wide here. So let's do like a more rounded shape. Okay, I like this. So let's continue. Let's select the next joint, move the cursor, and duplicate. And again, I'm looking at the scale here at the joint and then adjust the length. Okay, and now only the fingertips. So yeah, let's start with the thumb, for example. So we can select this. Start as usual, but now we'll modify the model. So let's first rotate it. And now let's type into the edit mode. Go for edge select by pressing 2. Alt click this loop, hold Alt and Shift, select the other one, and press Ctrl X to dissolve them. And now we can just select the top and make it smaller. Here, adjust the curve so we get something like this. I think it works nicely. So we can just select another joint here. And again, duplicate and move over. Adjust the rotation. Okay, and adjust the scale. And maybe the width as well. Like this. And now just finish with the rest of those. Oh, and I think I didn't duplicate this, so let me move it back. like that. And finally, the last one. Okay, and that's basically it for the modeling. We can see how we were able to use the armature to create the skeleton hand, without any references or anything. This is basically all you need. And now let's select the armature, press H to hide it. Let's disable the X-ray view, and now let's select all of those and press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision surface modifier with 2 levels of subdivision. So now if you select it, you can see the levels are 2, same as here. Here we can maybe use even 3. And the reason I use Shift D instead of Alt D, I didn't want these to be linked. So now if I select them all and apply the scale, because that's really important when creating a rig or something, that you have the scale applied, you can press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Now it should be only applied if some of those change for you. That means you used Alt D to duplicate, which is not the way to do it here, because with every duplicate we are creating a new object. We are not creating linked objects. And yeah, right now just select all, right click, shade smooth, and this is your skeleton hand, and we'll now fully rig it. So press Alt H to unhide the armature. Now select the bones, go to the data properties, scroll down and click generate rig. This is the part of the Rigify add-on, so just click it, and you can see now only the hand rig is generated, because those are the only bones that were available in the armature. And now we are able to apply this. But if you just select the hand objects and map it with automatic weights, it would distort and bend. So again, this will be a little bit tedious to do this, but the result will be very nice because the bones will actually act and behave like bones. So first of all, let's select this here and press H to hide it. We don't need to see it in our scene. And now let's select everything, hold Shift, select the armature and press Ctrl P and parent to armature, but with empty groups. We don't want these automatic weights, we want empty groups, so let's do that. Now on the advantages is not that difficult to do that. So for example, let's select this bone, and here if you expand in the data properties, you can see there are these groups for the bones. So if you used this before, this list can be quite long. So here it's only one hand, so actually we'll only need to take care of these bones. So let's tap into the edit mode, press A to select all. And now let's locate the upper arm right here and click assign. Now tab out, select this one, tab in, select all. And again, we'll locate the forearm and assign. Tab out. And of course, we'll need to, replicate this process for every single bone. So again, a little bit tedious, but nothing too crazy. So let's select this here, tab into the edit mode, press A to select all. And let's use hand group and click assign. Now here these are the palm 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let's select this one. Let's locate the palm 1 and assign. Here this will be the palm 2, 3 and 4. And basically the rest should be really easy because that's named after the fingers. So if you select the thumb, you will find the thumb here, and it's thumb 1 because the number 3 is the fingertip. So you start at number 1 here. So let's assign here. Now the thumb 2 and 3. And now let's repeat the same process for, the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and, the pinky. So I think that's it, and now you should have a fully functioning rig if you assign those properly. So let's select the rig, press Ctrl Tab, or just go here and choose pose mode. And now this is with inverse kinematics and everything. So you can just select this red bone right here and start moving your hand around and start rotating it. The great thing is the fingers work as well, so you can press R to rotate those. But they work in a way where if you press S to scale, they will curl. So quite a nifty feature of the Rigify add-on. You can just curl them like this, create some sinister gesture. Just like that, and rotate it outside, for example. And move it around. And then you can readjust the position with some of these bones. But all in all, I think just the inverse kinematics should be enough here. I really like this pose, for example. So let me Control Tab out of the pose mode, and let's look from the camera by pressing 0 on a numpad. And we can go N for the side panel, and in the view settings, enable camera to view. So now you're able to use the viewport controls to zoom in on your scene. And yeah, I really like this pose right there. So we can disable this, press N to collapse, hold Shift S, snap cursor to roll origin, and let's create a little bit of background. So let's add a plane, tap into the edit mode, let's scale it up quite a lot, and right click and subdivide, and press Shift R to repeat the subdivision steps few times. And then we can press 1 for vertex select vertex right here, enable proportional editing, and press G, then Z, and move this up, and you can adjust the fall off with the mouse wheel here. So let's create like a hill, and then we can select one of these and make the influence smaller and create like small bumps here and there, so it feels a little bit more organic. Maybe this can be a little bit higher. And then let's bury one inside a little bit, and now tab out, and let's press Ctrl 1 to add subdivision surface modifier, maybe Ctrl 2 to add more levels. But be careful, because since we made it so dense, this might really overload your machine, so you might do it on a smaller plane and then create background separately. So right click, shade smooth, and now I'll just select the rig and move it around here, right there. Let's look from the camera again. Yeah, I really like this. So yeah, we can now tap into the edit mode here, alt click this loop, press E then Y, and create something like an infinite background here. So we can press E then Z and extrude it up like this, and it should cover the camera nicely. And now let's press Ctrl B to limit the preview only to camera bounds, and let's go to render settings. I'll choose cycles, GPU, denoising, and I will use GPU for the denoising, and something like 512 samples should be okay. Of course, this could be like fully animated, so you can go inside, create keyframes for the location, rotation, and scale of these bones, and create some gesture, have fun around with it. And if you have something interesting, make sure to share it with me, through Instagram or on our Discord. The link is in the description. And of course, you can make the scene a little bit more interesting by, for example, creating some gravestones and stuff like that. By the way, the last tutorial was about sculpting the gravestones, so you can just go there and repeat it, or you can just grab the scene from the Gumroad, from the gravestone tutorial, and import it here the same way I did, to create thumbnail. So yeah, just go ahead, have some fun, fill up your scene, create some small animation. And now I'll just show you how to do like a very simple lighting here, so you can render out your image. So with the render settings active, we can hold Z and switch to rendered preview, hold Shift S, snap cursor to roll origin, let's press Shift A, and we'll add a light, an area light, press G and Z, move it up, so we get some basic soft light from top. Maybe we can move it a little bit back. Okay, if it's too many lines here for you, you can always go to the overlays and disable extras and disable bones and even the relationship lines. You don't need to see this at all. And now let's add another area light, and let's move it back here, create the backlight, so we can rotate it a little bit, add some strength like 500, something really strong. Maybe make it smaller. Maybe 500 is too much. Let's do like 200. And let's make it green. And let's select the background, create a new material, and let's make it darker and like blue or something. All like this. And let's make it more rough. And now we can add a spotlight, for example. Press G then Z, move it up. Let's make it stronger, like 500. And now we can switch here to 3D cursor, so we can rotate it like this to the side until it stops touching the background. So I just rotate it and move down like this. And then press R, then Z, so it hits, you know, our skeleton from the side there. Something like this. And now we can go back to the median point and rotate, so you can clearly see how the light is hitting the side there. And we can, for example, do like a purple light from the side here. Maybe we can switch back to the 3D cursor and rotate around Z-axis to hit it from the side a little bit more. Or like this. Okay, I really like this. And now press Shift D and RZ and rotate to the other side. Find some position. And we can now make this green. So this is like the classic, you know, horror scheme. Green and the violet. Yeah, and finally you can add cube. Move it up a little bit. Create a new material and remove the principled shader from surface. And in the volume, add principled volume. Let's do like 0.1. And maybe we can make it colored. And then in the world settings, you can add some color as well. Make it a little bit brighter. And let's set up the fog again. Maybe it can be more dense, so something like 0.2. And of course, we can make this larger, so we really see, you know, the cone from the spotlight. And yeah, finally go to the render settings, color management, and you can choose like higher contrast setting and play with the exposure, and, you know, lay around your, you know, rocks, gravestones, and whatever else you have, and then render, wait out your scene and save your image. So yeah, that's it for today's tutorial. The fully rigged skeleton hand that can be, you know, positioned, animated. You can put something in the hand and create the scene on your own. So again, I really hope you enjoyed this one. And if you did, please leave that like. And if you're new around here and want to learn more, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.